Every puppet show needs a concept. Concept is an idea that governs the show. When you're working with the team, you want to make sure that they understand the concept so that you're all telling the same story. You want to know who has the focus, which character has the focus, and just the general feel for the story. I mean, if it's an outrageous comedy, everybody can't be outrageous at once, otherwise it just looks like chaos up there. So you need to really make sure that you're telling the same story. So sit down for a concept chat at the beginning of the pieces before you even start to read through the scripts, just so you make sure you're telling the same story. Improvisation is part of the show, but it's not so outlandishly lavish that you lose the other person on there.
So for the right hand, we're going to have another puppet also, so we're going to be...
It's going to be right hand for the puppeteer, like this. And the idea, too, is like the puppet hands, the gloves are going to be like putting on puppet mittens basically over the top of the gloves, and you're going to have to like... When you're doing your first read-throughs, you want to start with your voices immediately. These are not going to be the voices that you use in your final performances. Voices evolve. You know, you discover things. Sometimes you try a voice out and you just can't sustain it because it's too hard on your throat. But start immediately with voices, and also picture that you're going to have a puppet somehow on your hand. So start to pantomime what that's going to be like so that when you actually get a puppet on, you don't freeze up. Once upon a time, there was a pretty girl.
My name is Lisa.
Oh, excuse me. Once upon a time, there was a pretty Lisa who lived in a nice house.
You call this a nice house? This is just a shoebox.
Well, just use your imagination. Okay, once upon a time, there was a pretty Lisa who lived in a not-so-nice house. But she fell on hard times and she couldn't pay the rent. Well, kids, you're probably too young to know this, but it costs a lot of money to live in a house.
Just get on with the story.
Oh, anyway, Lisa couldn't pay the rent. When you have a feel for the voices and you have a feel for the story, it's time to get the puppets on and get the stage assembled so that you can actually start rehearsing. Don't wait until you're ready. Just throw the puppets on, you know, get back there. If you wait till you're ready, you'll never be ready, so you just kind of have to dive into it. Here Jason's assembling the stage for his first time. Hello children, my name is Nigel, and I'm a puppeteer. I'm a ventriloquist. A ventriloquist is a very special kind of puppeteer. He throws his voice to make it look like somebody else is doing the talking. Now your librarian invited me here today to entertain you, so I'm going to tell you a very old story. It's a classic. Alright, let's see. Here we realized that we couldn't get the puppets out of the bag and that the reach was all wrong and pretty much everything was messed up, and so we had to replan. Instead of having the bag, which we thought would be really cool, on the outside we decided to just put hanging hooks on the inside. Excuse me. Alright. Okay. Alright, here we go. Okay. Ah, yes, better. Okay, can you reach over? Let's see. All right. Hello, children! My name is Nigel. Guess what? I'm a ventriloquist.
You know what a ventriloquist is? Well, a ventriloquist is a very special kind of puppeteer who throws his voice to make it seem like somebody else is doing the talking. So, your librarian invited me here today to tell you a story, to entertain you. So I'm going to tell you a very old story called You Must Pay the Rent. It's a classic. Okay, time to suit up here.
You can see how little changes make big differences. Just putting the puppets on hooks behind the curtain made it a lot easier for us to just put our hands down inside the puppets and then get back up into action. Still not perfect, still takes a little bit of work to get it there, but it's one of those little things that you develop during the rehearsal process to get you closer to that final polished performance.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl, and she lived in this nameless girl.
Sorry. I was gonna do it, and then I thought, my name is Lisa!
Oh, I'm sorry, Lisa. Yeah. Once upon a time, there was a pretty Lisa who lived in a pretty house.
Wait, and you call this a pretty house? It is a shoebox!
Oh, well, just use your imagination, Lisa. All right? Once upon a time, there was a pretty girl who lived in a not-so-pretty house, and, well, she couldn't pay the rent. Now, children, I don't know if you know this or not, but it costs a lot of money to live in a house. Why, some of your parents spend upwards of...
Get on with the story already, please!
All right, well, long story short, Lisa couldn't pay the rent.
It's recording. There you go.
Oh, there it is. It even says so.
All right.
Republic.
Yep, 43 minutes of...
Yeah? Okay. Part of the pre-show routine is that you warm up the audience. Just go out there, talk to the kids. For this particular show, we have an audience interaction piece built in where the kids make these superhero signs that we'll use later in the show. And that's working out so far. It kind of gets them involved. And we do it before the show, and we don't use the props that they make until the third story. And so it's a nice way to kind of re-engage them later on. You're planting a little breadcrumb that they're going to get back to later on down the line. But anything you do, talking to them, playing with them, joking around with them, is going to help the show go better.
Hello, boys and girls, and other people as well. My name is Nigel, and I'm a ventriloquist. Now, a ventriloquist is a very special kind of puppeteer who throws his voice to make it seem like somebody else is doing the talking, all right? Your librarian invited me here today to tell you a story, so I'm going to tell you the oldest story I know. It's called You Must Pay the Rent. Now, how many people have heard that one before? Nobody? Seriously? Oh, there we go. There we go. Don't show your age there. All right. You must pay the rent. And anyway, it's a classic. Okay, suit up now. Here we go. Bear with me for just a moment.
Even with all the practice that we did with the hooks, and this is the second show that Brian and I did this day. First time they worked perfectly. Second time the hook kind of got turned around and grabbed onto the puppet and we couldn't get it out. And so, you know, it's live theater. Things sometimes just don't work.
Almost there. Almost there. All right. Kind of hung up back here. Got my knickers in a bunch. That's right, knickers. All right. Okay. Here we go. Lock. Once upon a time, there was a pretty girl.
My name is Lisa.
Oh, sorry. Once upon a time, there was a pretty Lisa who lived in a very pretty house.
You call this pretty? This is a duck. It is a box. A shoebox.
Well, use your imagination, Lisa. All right. Once upon a time, there was a very pretty Lisa who lived in a not-so-pretty house. And, well, Lisa couldn't pay the rent. Now, children, I don't know if you know this, but it costs a lot of money to live in a house.
Get on with the story.
Okay, well, long story short, Lisa couldn't pay the rent.
Like, boo-hoo and cry. I can't pay the rent.
Yeah, well, as you can see, Lisa's a method actor. Now, her landlord came to collect the rents on the last day of each month. Knock, knock, knock. Hey, Lisa, it's time to pay the rent.
But I I've lost my job and I cannot pay the rent.
Oh, you lost your job?
Yes.
Oh, well, I'm really sorry to hear that. I'll come back later then. You know, I really hope you find another job. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Wait a minute! That's not your line. You're supposed to say you must pay the rent. That's mean. You don't want me to be mean, do you? Of course I want you to be mean. You're the bad guy. Did you read the script? Your name is Bad Guy. Bad guys are supposed to be mean, otherwise the story is boring. Now take your line again. Okay, a mean voice. Do you even have a mean voice? I'm not a... Yeah, can I hear your mean voice? Let me hear it. Say you must pay the rent in a real mean voice.
You must pay the rent.
You must pay the rent. Okay. Let's hear another version. I need to get a couple...
You must pay the rent.
Ooh, she's kind of going beast mode there. I kind of like that. Can I hear one more? Okay, you. Right there.
You must pay the rent.
Oh, you must. Okay, I'm going to use your mean voice, but I'm going to stress the word must like she did, okay? All right. Beast mode. Okay, here we do. We can do this. You must pay the rent.
But, like, I can't pay the rent.
But you must pay the rent.
But, like, I cannot pay the rent.
You must pay the rent.
So that's an overview about how a show goes from a concept, into rehearsals and then finally into performance. Things change quite a bit throughout the show. That's a good thing. They should change, but once the show goes on the road, it should be fairly set with just minor modifications. One thing I didn't get into at all in here was the writing of the show, and it baffles the mind. Writing a puppet show is really hard, but we'll probably make another little video about that. So cheers.
My name is not Girly, it's Lisa, and I told you I can't pay the rent.